Have you ever had one of those days where you're feeling frantic on the inside, but you have to still keep that lawyer look on the outside? You feel like this girl looks inside, but you have to look like the lawyer who's in control on the outside. You're being pulled in all these different directions, and you start wondering, is there even light at the end of the tunnel? You might even wonder if there even is a tunnel. That's what chronic stress feels like. Hi, welcome to Front Porch Lawyer, where we explore the humanity of lawyering. I'm Francine, your host. Now, I just put together a continuing legal education course. The title is Stress Management for Attorneys, The Ethical Traps for the Unwary. And this course is about chronic stress, and I've come up with like 15 different ethical rules that could be easily violated by an attorney who is under stress. And as I was putting this course together, what struck me was I came across a case, and the case showed me that our legal system and our courts are not up to speed on chronic stress. They don't have the information that I have that I'm giving to you. And as a result, the way they're approaching discipline isn't as attuned to current brain science. So this case involved a woman who was an attorney, and she had been slowly getting worse and worse through chronic stress, and she was suffering from severe depression and some other mental disorders. And right before the discipline started, what caused the disciplinary proceedings to start was she had stolen $60,000 from her father, her elderly father. Now, he wasn't a client, but this was all triggered under Rule 8.4, which is the general misconduct rule, so that if an attorney commits an act of moral turpitude, they can bring discipline proceedings, even if it didn't involve a case, the court, or a client. And the referee who was investigating this case determined that she had been getting treatment. She recognized that she was under too much stress, she had all these problems, so she was getting treatment. And she had no history of discipline in the past. And the referee suggested to the court that to use her treatment and that she was getting help as a mitigating factor and to not discipline her as harshly as they might otherwise have. And the court recognized that she had been under all this stress and she was getting treatment, but they made a distinction between things that you were already obligated to do that you failed to do versus an affirmative act. And they came down on the side that if you are suffering from stress, that would explain, that would cause you to omit doing something, forget to do something, or not perform an act or a duty that you already had an obligation to do. But they concluded that it would not cause you, as a direct cause, you to do something like steal money. Well, this is not true. Chronic stress can cause all sorts of things because what happens is chronic stress impairs our judgment. So this is the slide that I printed out. This is one of the slides that I created for my course. And this shows you the cycle of stress, of chronic stress. So it starts here in the brain with the amygdala. So something happens on the outside, like a lion chasing you, but of course we don't have lions chasing us. But it could be traffic on the way, you're late for court. That's how it starts. You're late for court, and then the judge rules against you, and then the client calls and complains, and day in and day out, all these things happen, and pretty soon you're just in stress all the time. So when it first gets triggered, it triggers the amygdala, this little part, small part of the brain, which then sends all the hormones out to your body to put you in stress so that you would respond. And if it was a survival thing, that's really good. But when it's not a survival thing, like what's happening in the office, it's really bad. And it releases cortisol, among other chemicals. And then cortisol gets pumped into your system. And when you're in chronic stress, it gets pumped into your system all day long. And when you get enough cortisol, it starts to impact the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex of your brain, which is where our judgment resides, our high-level executive functions reside. This is the part of the brain that we lawyers use every single day. This is the part that we use for critical thinking, problem solving, decision making. We need that prefrontal cortex. So when you're under chronic stress, that hormone wreaks havoc not only on your body, but your brain. And the very part of the brain we need the most is degrading. So that means that it's as if we're drunk. It means we're impaired. Our judgment is impaired. Our brain function is impaired. It's like we've had a few drinks, even though we haven't. You won't be stumbling down the hallway as if you really had a drink, but your brain is functioning as if you had had a few drinks, which is not good. So when the court concluded in this woman's case, they said, you need to show us proof that you no longer have a propensity to commit a crime. Well, she never had a propensity to commit a crime because she had never had discipline before. This was all as a result of stress. And you know what happens when your judgment is impaired? We start doing all sorts of things that we think is a good idea that we would not think was a good idea if our brain wasn't impaired. And that's what stress does. And the court looked at her and said, because it was an affirmative act where you stole money, we do not think stress was a direct cause of that. Well, I'm here to tell you that was a direct cause of what she did. And there may have been other causes even, but when you're under that kind of stress and your brain is that impaired, that's going to cause you to do things because you just have bad judgment. And you're going to be making bad choices as a result of it. So as a result of that case, it just occurred to me that, like in so many cases, our legal system kind of lags behind. Eventually our legal system will catch up and we'll get all the information. We'll get the experts in court. The courts will learn what chronic stress really does to our brain. But for right now, the courts may not be aware of how much chronic stress can impair your judgment. So if you or someone you know is suffering from chronic stress, if it's someone else, go help that person. If it's you, go get help, because your judgment is impaired and you can't operate like this for very long. And if you are under that kind of stress, you need to proceed with caution. Get someone you trust to help you out and guide you out of that. And if it's really severe, you need to go see a professional. But just know this, if you're in chronic stress, your judgment is going to be impaired. Don't go it alone, because that's like the blind leading the blind, literally. So make sure you get some help if you are suffering from that, and if someone in your office is suffering from it, be sure to help them out too. Thank you for joining me on my front porch, and send me your comments and feedback. This is Francine Tone and From Porch Lawyer, and I'll see you next time.